subject matter, the singing, the music, the instruments, is coming from a part of Cornwall that a whole lot of us don't remember or never knew anything about. And that's what really makes this show a great treasure. I'm glad to see everybody here. It's hard to get a look at everything, you know, now with all these people in here, but do be aware that we are open until Labor Day, Saturdays from 10 to 4, Sundays from 1 to 4, and come back because it's good to see it at leisure. And now I wanted to introduce Jill Cutler, who's going to tell us a bit more, and so on. Go. Good.
I'm the Vice President of the Historical Society, as it happens, but I'm here in another capacity, which is that I'm one of the people who helped put together this exhibit. And what I want to say is that while most of us know the town of Cornwall as a place that's kind of stuffed with artists and writers, we forget sometimes that it is a rural town with its own life, its own traditions. And one of its residents was a young girl named Lorraine Chenier. Now her name is Lorraine Chenier Hammond. She discovered at an early age the music and the musicians of Cornwall. She became a professional musician and an academic. And in her academic work and in her songwriting, she captured some of the old musical forms and that still existed here as a way of preserving them and carrying them on. Her life story is the sort of beginning of this exhibit, but we discovered very quickly that there was a community and a rich history of people listening to this music and learning from each other. So the exhibit became a community effort, and there are a lot of people to thank, and it's my job to thank them. Lorraine Chenier Hammond and Bennett Hammond contributed photos, artifacts, musical instruments, a master's thesis, and a whole concert which is going to take place August 12th. We'll keep you posted. Tim Prentice lent us his gorgeous, mythical, and quirky musical instruments, the mother plucker and the 2x bone. And he also allowed us to interview him and Marie about their musical life in Cornwall, which spanned a long time and was very rich. Wally Bezzosi contributed many reminiscences and other materials which are featured in the scrapbook which is behind you on that table. It's a work in progress, so if you have information or pictures that you would like to share with us, we'd love to have them. Phil and Sally Hart helped us to find a photo of a barn dance. That was the hardest thing. But we persevered and we got one. Roxana Laughlin told us stories about the connection between the Hampton Institute and Cornwall, which is another exhibit in itself, and lent us the album whose cover you see up there of Hampton Institute singers who came to Cornwall. Gary Hall and Kelly Day contributed memories, photos, and the music of Byron Hall. His playing and singing was not only great in itself, but influenced a lot of younger musicians, including John Nuis and Don Polk. Ann Chamberlain, Pastor Mickey Nunn Miller, and the UCC choir recreated a hymn sing like the one that you can see behind you on this wall as you come in. Doc Seamont and Dave Cadwell tenderly carted Tim's instruments to CHS. Not the easiest thing. The Community Fund of Northwestern Connecticut paid for the scanner that made it possible for us to have these magnificent images. I was telling Lisa that that photo of the barn dance was about this big and folded in half. That was the only one that we had. It went through the scanner, and now it is great.
What barn was that in? What barn was that?
Barn.
Yeah.
Oh,
Our former executive director, Jamie Cantoni, was unbelievably helpful, from scanning and photoshopping images to helping us imagine how we could possibly make an exhibit. And last but not least, we could not have done any of this without the expert and unfailingly helpful and game Connie Steuerwald, who cheerfully held our hands and wielded her professional hammer to make her usual beautiful exhibit. She makes a difficult thing look easy, and we're very grateful to her. And now I want to pass the torch to my co-conspirator, Jeremy Brecker, who comes to us after having done the Waterbury Ethnic Music Project. He's bringing it back home, as it were.
Wow, yeah.
So I'm going to be quick, because we're going to have some live music right after this. I just want to say, when I was a kid growing up in Cornwall, there was a lot of homemade music. Eddie Lisk's band played in the Grange Hall. Two Tangway played fiddle for barn dances in the Hart's Barn, like that. Welcome. And even played square dances in the covered bridge, sometimes playing over his head or behind his back for a trick. There was also a lot of music I didn't know about. I knew some of the DeGrenia family, but I didn't know that Oscar DeGrenia sang old English and Irish ballads that had been handed down in his family. There's one here on the tape with him and his wife, and there's pictures and more about Oscar on the wall over there. I knew some of the Hall family, but I didn't know that Byron Hall was a singer and songwriter whose recordings ranged from talking blues to a memorial for John F. Kennedy. And I'd like to make a special shout out to all the Halls who are here. It's great to have you. Really wonderful. Bringing Byron's heritage and music and story is a big part of what motivated us to want to do this exhibit. At its core, Cornwall's homegrown music was the music of a rural working community. But those singing and playing it crossed class lines, education lines, and race lines. The kids I grew up with, like Lorraine Chenier, now Lorraine Hammond, and John Nuis, got into music with a passion. Both went on to become nationally known musicians. A few years ago, Lorraine began coming back to Cornwall and revisiting the local musicians she had known and learned from as a child. She and her husband Bennett Hammond began giving a series of free Cornwall homecoming concerts. And that's really the other root of what we're doing that led to this exhibit, and that this exhibit is trying to contribute to. She wrote wonderful songs about her childhood here. She wrote a thesis on Cornwall music, placing it in the arc of rural Appalachian music from Georgia to Maine. And people don't think this is part of the Appalachians, but if you go to Google and look at what is in the Appalachians, Cornwall is in the Appalachians. Or as we say, the Appalachians. Gary Hall, talking of his Uncle Byron Hall, said, back in those days, they didn't have TV, they didn't even have much radio. Checkers and music, that's most of what they had. But homegrown music in Cornwall didn't disappear with the arrival of radio, TV, or even the internet. It has persisted from generation to generation. Our exhibit includes a new crop of Cornwall singers and songwriters whose work is likely to appear on the World Wide Web, as well as on a Cornwall back porch. And I'm very happy we have Don Polk here. Where's Don? There you go. Whose front page, home page of his website is there on the wall, and who is also has his roots in the Hall family and Hall Road and that legacy. What we're trying to do with the Homegrown Music of Cornwall project is to let people know about the older traditions and about the people who are reinventing those traditions today. There's an old joke about homegrown music. Homegrown music, not as bad as it sounds. We hope you'll agree.
Great, thank you.
And now we're hoping to have some live music from one of the people who's carrying on the tradition, and that's Rachel Gall, who plays the fiddle and was clutching it there.
I do have it on my back.
Do you want to go out?
If it's warm in here, we can just adjourn to the front lawn, because it's really cooling off.
People can listen and move about. I'm used to playing for dancers. I'm used to playing for people on the move. So, so you can feel like you can enjoy the show and listen and move about.
If anyone leaves before we come back in, thanks so much for coming. This is really exactly the vision we had of what it would be to have a Cornwall event that would connect so many pieces of what this is.
And please don't